Tonight's program is Stop Thief, the Shrewsbury Thief Detecting Society, 1814 to 1928, by Linda Davis and Sergeant Timothy Finicom. And we also welcome Chief Kevin Anderson. Thank you.
Big enough room, guys? You're all in training to be police officers. This is your first day of training. Tonight we're going to talk about the Thief Detecting Society. It was a society that was basically what policing was at that time period in the early 1800s, late 1800s. We had a lot of societies in town. We had floral societies, debate societies, literary, temperance, all kinds of different things. However, one that I spoke of a few years back, the Farmers and Mechanics Club, and like the Thief Detecting Society, they actually served main purposes. The Thief Detecting Society, in some areas, we call it here in Shrewsbury the Thief Detecting Society. Some areas called it Detecting Thieves and Recovering Stolen Property. And it's a mutual society of town citizens willing to work together against thieves and what they called at that time lawless freebooters. It was basically, in roundabout terms, a vigilante group to a certain extent. And there was lots of those in our early colonial New England. The Thief Detecting Society came about for really good reasons. Young America was facing severe problems after the American Revolution. Without any king's laws, without policing of any sort, with maybe a constable being in charge of several towns or several locations around the area, the crime wave just accelerated. And, it was, they could do basically anything they wanted to do and get away with it. So, what were some other reasons that you guys think that a crime wave would have accelerated after the American Revolution? Any ideas?
No jobs.
Yeah, you got to remember a lot of these veterans came back and had not been paid. Only the higher-ups would sometimes get paid in land out like in Ohio, someplace like that. But basically, you had all these militia and colonial soldiers who had put their life on the line for the country. And now all of a sudden, the country's broke. There's no jobs. Everybody's living in one house because there isn't enough housing, just like today. And then, like I say, without policing, without two or three constables, and without any rules from the king, it turned into havoc. So this was really the main reason why this society came into play. By the 1790s, the farmers and the individual citizens of the town were becoming completely frustrated because all they did was chase down missing livestock, looking for wagons. It was firmly believed by most of these people at this point that many of these people doing the stealing had taken it up as a full-time occupation because there was no other work for them. And of course, stealing horses was the favorite. So as you can see in the picture, this was a picture that you see it in some format on almost all thief detecting broadsides or paperwork. And it's a horse thief detector pursuer, as they were called, chasing a horse thief. Why do you suppose horses were number one on the list of stealing? Yeah, of course, they could get away easy. You go to a farmer and you take his Clodhoff horse, he's not going anywhere. But the guy down the street has a stable filled with fancy horses that pull his carriages. those horses are going to go like a heartbeat. And you've got one horse running crazy, and you've got another horse behind. So how many horses do you think they really recovered? Not too many. And of course, horse thieving had been going on since the beginning of man. For some reason, horses were always a great thing to steal. I mean, we had it back in colonial times, we had it, and then, for a while we blamed, the native people and whatnot, because they would take things. And so horse thieving was your main goal behind this society. Yeah.
Did they have brands back then?
Well, I'm sure that they did, but, if like a less affluent person may not have had them. If they were running a big stable or what, don't forget the ranches that we think of where they brand their livestock are out west, where they roam hundreds and hundreds of acres. Where here, you're living in a small town, so you're not really probably branding your animals, And around this time, many of these towns around us were starting to build these societies. Boston, of course, was one of the earliest ones because they had a lot more of a population down there, so their crime wave was even better. So, but a lot of these societies also were formed around state borders in the beginning. And that's because they needed to apprehend before they crossed state borders. Because once you cross the state border, what happens? You can't go any further. So that's why they would establish a lot of these around state lines. So you couldn't get a horse into Providence if there was a thief detecting society, say, in one of those towns on the borders, and could be fast enough to catch it. The Worcester Society started around 1795. And they started their society being called the Worcester Society of Mutual Aid Against Thieves. And like I say, that was one of the first biggest ones right here in our area. Ours started around 1814. Now, these societies charged small fees. Oh, we got that. This here is the lovely book. It's here. You can look at it afterwards. This is the book. This is their meeting minutes. And they would meet basically one time a year in the beginning of the year. So all of this book is all January some date each year. Okay, this here is a form that is a list of people who were involved in the society over years. You're going to have a hard time reading it, obviously. It's not in the best condition. That's over here, too, someplace. But some of the names on it are names that you're very familiar with. The Howes, the Slocums, the Pratts. All these people had livestock, had horses, had wagons, carriages. So they most definitely wanted to be part of this society because the pursuers also came from the society. You and I could go and ask them for help, but we would pay for their help. If they were if you joined the group, then you were given a job. And a lot of them, it was a small fee to join. And they would organize they organized the group, they put in together a constitution, bylaws. Like I say, they met like the first month of every year. And they would select officers, directors, and pursuers. So this, see that, it's telling you that there. You guys can read, obviously, up there. You got enough screens to see it, so you should be able to read it all right. So, like I say, this here is kind of like, if you can see it close, you'll see the dates change. Like it starts at 1814, and there's a list of names, and then it was 1815, 1816. So at each annual meeting that they had, they would swap out people doing different things. The main job was basically to investigate these situations and chase down these thieves. As a member, you were required to join in anything that this society was involved in. So, if you were also obligated to be a pursuer if that was required. And I mean, we had like a list. You'd have like 18 pursuers, but if it was a situation where you needed to be on that, if you didn't, it meant failure to keep up with your constitution and your society, and you would get immediate expulsion from the organization. The monies collected from this organization and from you and me for rewards and stuff like that all went into the treasury. Sometimes rewards were offered, sometimes they weren't. If they were offered and you called me and asked me to get your horse, I take half of your reward as a thief detector. Many of the constitutions in this group, yeah, we got that. That one there we have a nice clean one of. This one here is one that didn't have any writing on it. So that's your thief detecting thing. And down here would list the directors, the pursuers. And this is one from 1857 that was donated to the society. And this does list the names of the pursuers and the committee members. And in the constitution of these groups, a lot of them included wording such as the practice of stealing of late has been made necessary for us to unite most effectual measures for the protection of property against these hostile intrusions and these unprincipled individuals. The typical broadside would show the horse on the thing. So most of them say "Stop Thief" on it. If you look, there's a little banner, that has, you can see in tiny writing, it says "Stop Thief." This is part of one page of the Constitution, which is in this book. No, I believe this is revisions. It's a separate page. So like any other group, as they moved along and had to do things, they would change up their bylaws, they'd change up things on the constitutions. So, when this society first started meeting, they would meet in what was the Colonial Inn, which was at the center of town. And as time went on, this building was taken down, moved around, sections here, sections there. So in the later years, they would meet at the Congregational Church and sometimes the town hall. Let's see, the societies eventually advanced into protecting more than just horses. Oh, there's your thing. See, it didn't come out very good because it's very dark on the bottom. This was donated to the society in 1905. This little thing up at the top is an actual bill that came from the Thief Detecting Society for services of 1 day, 25 miles, dinner for the pursuer, and a horse. And it was presented by S.B. Boutell for expenses occurred in recovering his own horse, which was attached to the buggy and had been stolen. They found it in Worcester, and then I guess it went to Worcester, and then they found it in Providence. And in this case, it says they added another $15 to bury the horse. So I guess the horse didn't make the steal. At first, it was mostly livestock, horses in general. And then they started taking buggies and carriages and wagons. And so, if someone stole your car right now, not only is it a big expense to you, but you can't get home, can't get to your job, you can't, And in these days, it was harder because these people were self-sufficient people. They had trades, but they didn't go to work like we go to work. They may work at the tannery or something, but on the whole, many of these people were self-employed and self-sufficient. So if someone took your carriage or your wagon and your horses, you can't get to market the next day. You can't get to the farmer's market to sell your produce that you have extra. So in that point, then, your family doesn't get the money from the sale, and you lose the money from your product. So it became as difficult a deal as with just the horses in general. This here's just one of the little papers. We have lots of little papers. Because they only met once a year, I think we just don't have a lot, you know, of lots of individual sort of things. But this is a treasurer's report. And this was this book here. And it's fun to look through because you can see everybody's different handwriting, you know, who was ever in charge. So this is a page like this one here. And if you look in the red this guy wrote in the columns with the red, it says offices, treasury reports, new members. It's just a page from this book. And this is just another treasurer's report from one of the annual meetings. All right. In 1840, the Worcester Society actually provided aid to chase down thieves who had robbed a store in Worcester. And I'm sure that if I tell you whose store they robbed, you will know who it is. They robbed the store owned by Daniel and Benjamin Goddard on Main Street. And they dealt with silver. So it doesn't report anywhere if they ever found the stuff, but so like some of the names of our pursuers and stuff, if you look, one of the lists that dark one I showed you was from 1857. Like I say, once again, it's names that you know. I mean, Boutell, Green, Allen, Temple, Reed, Knowlton, you know, Howe, directors Howe, Carpenter, Mason, Hemingway. So because in 1900, our population in this town was only about 2,000 people. So you see these names repeat themselves because we only had like 2,000 people in town. And that, like I say, that was 1900. And so the same people did the same jobs. You'll see their names on the selectmen. You'll see their names on town clerks. You'll see their names in the Shrewsbury Mechanics Club. You see their names in these literary and temperance groups. So, you know, by approximately around 1905, we started establishing more of what we would call our police force. One of the first annual reports of the police department was in the annual report of 1905. And at that point, it says that they were starting to establish more constables and special police to perform this kind of work. The annual report shows that in 1905, we had 3 constables, 11 special police, and a deputy sheriff, which we don't have anymore. They go somewhere else. We also have charges for uniforms, badges, and handcuffs. Handcuffs were $3.75. We did get, like I say, we had uniforms and badges, so we were starting to get into something more established. I'm sure the thief detectives just went out in whatever they were wearing. They had reports of 1 liquor seizure, 2 disturbing of the peace, 2 assaults, 4 drunks, and 2 trespasses. Also in 1905, they hauled somebody to the insane hospital and 1 to the city hospital. Now this thing here rounds out, this is an article that rounds out that the society had been working for about 100 years. When the society made the donation to the Historical Society, it was in 1928. The deal was that they had like 500 plus minus money in their accounts. So the deal is that if they could be made lifetime members of the society, they would donate their records and their $500 towards the society to be used there. So that's what happened. So their money went into our treasury. They were given lifetime membership, and let's see, so, yeah, and then like I say, then they donated all their records and what broadsides we have. So like I say, it's unfortunate they only met once a year, so that we don't have as much as it would be fun to have, but having just this book alone is worth its weight in gold. So like I say, they became members of the society on their annual meeting in 1928. Okay, you guys can read this. Yeah, it was known as a thief detecting fund. It was kept separate for years from what I can understand. They were entitled to the privileges of voting at the society. And as you can see, there's familiar names again: Howard Shepard, Henry Goddard, Cook. And of course, we got Jefferson Dean, who was the treasurer. He turned over the funds. Maynard was the secretary, and he gave us the books. And that was the end of the Thief Detecting Society in town and the beginning of an actual police force. I would like to introduce my fantastic son-in-law, Sergeant Finicom, and Chief of Police, Kevin Anderson. And they will kind of carry you on a little bit from thief detecting to a bigger police force. There are handouts out back that Tim has put together. You can take when you leave.
Well, we've come a long way since the days of Thief Society. I'll say this, it's really not that much different today. That modern policing, we are members of the community that have to be guardians of the community. So it's very similar. So tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce myself and Sergeant Finicom, and I'm also going to go over how we conduct policing today in 2023. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chief Kevin Anderson, Shrewsbury Police Department. I've been police chief since July 1st of 2020. I graduated from Western New England University. I earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice administration. I began my law enforcement career in 1991 as a Massachusetts Department of Corrections as a correction officer. And in 1994, I was hired as a police patrolman for the town of Shrewsbury. Between 1994 and 2020, I was promoted to patrol detective, patrol sergeant, detective sergeant, and I was a lieutenant in each one of the divisions within the department. And as I said, July 1st of 2020, a little over 3 years, I've been your police chief. I'm here today with Sergeant Tim Finicom. Sergeant Finicom possesses a bachelor's degree from Curry College and a master's degree from Anna Maria College, both specializing in criminal justice. He started his career in 2001 as an intern, which eventually evolved in a full-time dispatch position and a patrol officer position in 2004. From 2009 to 2020, he was promoted to detective division. And in 2020, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. Our department has 74 full-time employees. We serve over 38,000 residents. That's a little more than the 2,000 residents we had at that time. We're the 44th most populated community in the state out of 351. Our authorized strength is 59, that's including myself, sworn officers, 8 dispatchers, 1 dispatch supervisor, 5 administrative assistants, 1 animal control officer, and we just hired a mental health clinician full-time this year. Last year, we handled over 44,000 incidents, which averages out to be about 122 per day. It's a 6% increase from 2021 and almost a 20% increase from 2020. The department handled a significant increase in call volume with staffing that was at times significantly lower than we needed due to COVID-19. The officers did an excellent job of handling all this while handling a pandemic. So this is the population, and these are the towns that we're compared to with other police departments. We're compared to Beverly, Braintree, which recently, the last census put us slightly over their population, which they're a city right outside of Boston. Watertown, which we have almost 4,000 more residents than, and we're often compared to Westboro and also Marlboro, which isn't on this slide, but just recently our population went beyond Marlboro's. This is our personnel. As you can see, we're slightly lower than our most comparable communities. Specifically Braintree, we have 59 sworn officers, they have 87. And according to the FBI statistics, An average police department has 2.2 sworn officers per 1,000 residents. That's in the United States. Specifically, in the Northeast, it's 2.2. Some parts of the United States, it's upwards almost 4. So that's in the Southwest, average is about 4 per 1,000 residents. This increased staffing is critical to ensure a high level of service to our ever-increasing population. As you're all aware, as our population increases, our traffic increases, and also our crimes increase. And again, this is the department overview compared to our national average. As you can see, we're low, we're 1.48. And then I'm going to go over a little bit of the department overview and how we handle policing and how we function here within the department. We run our day-to-day operations through our operations division, and that is head by Lieutenant Adam Cameron. And he oversees 6 sergeants, 44 patrol officers, 1 canine officer, 911 communications, 1 dispatch supervisor, and 8 dispatchers. Lieutenant Nick Perna, he's our Administrative Services Division Commander. He oversees an administrative sergeant, which is with us here today, Sergeant Finicom, a training sergeant, a quartermaster officer, all of our grant administration. We get a lot of our funds through grants through the state and through the federal government. Training coordination, special officer, training and management, and asset forfeiture. We added a new division this year. What we learned was a lot of communities our size have an entire division it's dedicated to community services. So over the years, the policing has changed. Once we had an arrest and detention model, now it's more of a community service model. So we have an entire division that's just for that purpose, which oversees our community services, our mental health clinician that we hired this year, our elder affairs officer, community engagement within the community, our department social media, crime prevention measures, animal control, traffic, which also includes our traffic on Lake Quinsigamon, and our critical incident management system management. What that is we monitor all the overdoses in town and out of town. So if anybody in town or resident overdoses out of town, it gets put into a system, and what we do within 48 hours, we respond with a detective and a substance abuse counselor to see if they can get help. And actually, it's been very successful, and we have a 45% rate of people actually getting help for their substance abuse. The one thing we did 2 years ago was put together a 5-year strategic plan, and right in our vision is our involvement with the community. And our vision is to be fully engaged with our community to co-produce public safety that reduces crime and improves quality of life. And what we do is we focus on 21st century policing model. And that's where you focus on 6 pillars of policing. And that is building trust and legitimacy within your community, policy and oversight on everything you do, technology and social media, community policing and crime reduction, officer training and education, and officer safety and wellness. If you focus on those 6 pillars, it fosters great relationships within the community, and you'll have a very effective police department. Policing has changed quite a bit over the years, in a good way. Shrewsbury consistently ranks as one of the safest communities in Massachusetts to live. Currently, we're ranked 9th. And we're also ranked high within the entire United States. And we're typically under 50. So we're usually right around 40. I think this year we're ranked 42. And just to give you an idea, any community that's 100 and under, we're all very similar. So we're all very extremely close as far as having a safe community. Providing superior public safety is a direct reflection of the police department's dedication to working with the community to address quality of life issues as well as crime prevention efforts. The officers do a great job out there making this a safe community. As you can see, we're in a nice new building. We've been working on this building for about 3 years. We've worked with Tecton Architects to complete this police station. The groundbreaking ceremony was held on September 3rd of 2021. We projected to be in the new building sometime late 2022, and we moved into the new station February 18th, 2023. But none of this would have been possible without everyone here that voted and supported in November of 2020. And on behalf of the department, I really want to thank everybody here tonight. Just some photos of the building. This is a drone photo of the building, and it's the complex. That drone is taking, you can see the old station at the bottom of that photo. That drone was just over what we call sacred acre. That's everyone aware that that's a perfect acre out there? Mr. Carney? This is our site design, our original site design. It was one of the first looks at the new police station when we were developing the building. This right here, this is the area right out here. It's the outside break room beyond the training room. And it can be used by anybody that's in training or anybody over at the town hall or even members of the department while they're working here on shift. This here is the lobby of the police station that you saw when you came in. I don't know if you had a chance. I know some people came in right around 7 o'clock. But if you have a chance, we put a lot of historical memorabilia in those casings. This right here is a public conference room. As I said before, it's more of a community service model of policing today. So we have 2 community rooms right off the lobby, as well as this training room. And all these 3 rooms can be utilized by the community. And you can book those through our training sergeant, Sergeant Michael Vitals. So if you want to have another meeting like this, you reach out and he'll put you in there as long as something else isn't going on. And we can also use those training rooms, and those conference rooms, 12 seats, is it, Tim?
I believe so,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
I believe each one has 12 seats. This here is the training room when it was just getting completed. And this is our fitness area. So it's unfortunate, but the police profession has 3 to 5 times more the fatality rate of any other profession. And it's very important that our officers remain physically fit. And also what we've done over the last year is we have our officers make sure they have a mental health checkup. So once a year they go and they speak to a mental health clinician, and we also will give them an additional day off for that. And that's just to have a mental health day that they may need just to kind of decompress a little bit. And the next is we're going to go over some questions that were presented to us, and Sergeant Finnecom is going to take that part of the presentation. And after that, we'll have it open for any questions, question and answer session if you'd like. Here you go, Sergeant.
Thank you, sir. I apologize, I am not as polished as the chief at speaking to the public. I am a sergeant, so it goes lower, so we don't get that. But what advancements have been made with police since the thief detecting regarding policing and for solving theft? Since, obviously, the historical period between the 1700s, 1800s, and early 1900s, police methods and community policing and solving theft has evolved significantly. It's important to note that policing varies greatly from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. You're not going to get the same service from certain jurisdictions that you get from our jurisdiction, is what I believe wholeheartedly. I believe the product that we give the town of Shrewsbury, because we care about the community, is a vastly superior product than you're getting from certain agencies. Professionalization of the police department was one of the first things to happen, as Ms. Davis spoke about. The development of modern police force marked a significant shift from your vigilante justice to professional law enforcement. The transition involved establishment of standard training, codes of conduct, policies and procedures, and hiring of sworn officers. I believe it was 1927 and 28 is when the civil service program started in Shrewsbury. So this is when you started to see the influx of officers in Shrewsbury. Community policing, which is very big, especially for the town of Shrewsbury. The chief is big with community service and community policing. One of the most important advancements in the modern policing has been the adoption of community policing models. Instead of being solely focused on law enforcement, police departments have increasingly worked with partnerships and trying to build better models for identifying issues for problem solving, including theft. Advancements in technology. Technology has played a pivotal role in advancing of policing. This includes the use of surveillance cameras, forensic science, DNA analysis, fingerprint identification, computer systems for data analysis and crime mapping, which is crucial in solving theft cases. Crime analysis and predictive policing. Advancements in data analysis techniques involve predictive policing, help law enforcement agencies identify the patterns, potential hotspots. What this means is we take the data, put it into a computer, and we try to see where a potential hotspot may be or is. This would be house breaks, say Spring Street, and we notice that there's a trend on Spring Street. 5 o'clock, there appears to be a group of people breaking into houses on Spring Street. We can coordinate our efforts in that area between that time instead of just randomly patrolling areas. So that would be crime analysis and predictive police work. Changes in legislation and legal processing. The changes in legal processing have provided police with enhanced tools and powers to combat theft and specifically retail crime. But for example, the development of search and seizure laws and the use of electronic surveillance has significantly impacted how police investigate and solve crimes. Community outreach and education. This is big. We do try this in our community services division, with the police department often engaging the community in outreach programs and education to raise awareness and crime prevention. This includes educating the public about common theft and crime prevention strategies to encourage the citizens to take an active role in safeguarding not just themselves, but also the community. As you can see here on the bottom, there's a couple of things for most common methods for identity theft. The number one is hacking, obviously, but you got stealing mail. And what stealing mail is, that's not from your mailbox. That's from, say, up here at the Shrewsbury, the post office, from the blue box. When you drop it in the blue box, they put a stick in there with a sticky substance, and they pull the mail out of there. So instead of putting it in the blue box, walk in and drop it off to somebody in hand. It's a much better way to keep your mail safe, so they're not stealing it that way. Also, requesting information through email, just try to be vigilant about that. Stealing account numbers, there's not much that you can do about that, unfortunately. And then stealing wallet and purse. This could happen when you're out shopping at your store. You just happen to have a forgetful moment and walk away from your purse, or you leave your wallet in the shopping cart to go get something and someone just quickly grabs it. Or you're down at Dean Park taking a walk and you leave your car unlocked and they go into your car and they take out your wallet or your purse. So, and again, that's when predictive policing would come back into. If we notice a mass influx of cars being broken into Dean Park, we know that's happening at 12 o'clock. Now we can put officers down there between 10 and 2, and we'll have a much better ability to catch those individuals. Social services and rehabilitation, the chief spoke about this. This is more about, we had the traditional punitive measures. We're trying alternatives. And here is Jessica. She's done an amazing job. It's my hopes that we can expand on that program. Obviously, again, I'm a sergeant. So, but if I could, I'd have 10 of Jessica's. She's amazing. She does amazing things for this community. And hopefully this is the model going forward. International cooperation. With us being on the border of Canada, not literally, but close. I'm not Sarah Palin, but that being said, we do work with the Canadian interface, and we'll have sometimes that we're contacted through them, but it's Interpol that it's at. And you can see here that 195 members, countries, coordinate through the Interpol. And we do crime, all different types of crime, not just theft. There's murders and all other types of investigations that happen through that. Community policing strategies. We learn all different types of strategies in schools, also in the academy, about broken windows and problem-oriented policing. These are adopted differently through jurisdiction to jurisdiction. You don't know what you're going to get. We do try to have the problem-oriented policing solutions here, but that can backfire on you as well. We do try to address the underlying social and environmental conditions that contribute to the criminal activity so that we can address that and try to help out the individual. We do have a body-worn camera program that was enacted last year, I believe, Chief?
Yes.
It was enacted last year. Approximately half of our police force are wearing body cameras at the moment. As more grant funding comes in, more officers are issued body cameras. It's a great program because it increases transparency and it promotes accountability, which are two huge aspects of policing, especially in today's day and age. With all of the things that I just spoke about in that specific question, you just have to realize again, that's going to vary between jurisdiction and jurisdiction. We're very fortunate here in Shrewsbury. The community members support us obviously here with this amazing building. I don't know if any of you have been given a tour yet and seen like our simunition training, which gives us access to different types of training virtually. But that's, again, something that not all police agencies have. So we do appreciate that, and I can't thank you enough. Question 2, how were things processed then and now? Crime scenes process has evolved significantly since the 1880s to present day. In the 1880s, forensics was in its infancy, and law enforcement methods were far less sophisticated compared to today. In the 1880s, crime scene investigators were largely dependent on eyewitness testimony and basic photography. Fingerprints and DNA were not even recognized as reliable sources of evidence. Modern crime scene processing relies on advanced technology today, including DNA analysis, fingerprint identification, surveillance cameras, digital forensics, high-resolution photography. This includes lasers, chemical reagents, and various types of test kits that we utilize. Evidence collection in the 1880s, collection of evidence was less systematic, and often resulted in contamination and mishandling. There was no standardized evidence collection. They just grabbed it and took it back to the station and probably left it on the horse and buggy. Methods obviously have gone to a better area. Crime scene investigators now use strict chain of command and follow specific protocols that have been put in place to prevent any type of contamination. I don't know if any of you have seen CSI. It's similar to that. It's not specifically like that.
We don't solve a crime in an hour.
We don't. Yeah, it's not as neat as that, but we do follow very strict chains of command. Forensic experts and detectives, our detectives, are trained on collecting, packaging, and documenting meticulously. I think we do a tremendous job with that. Fingerprint analysis. It was back then, but they also used to do other things where they would measure the distance of your eyes, and all different type of predictive stuff back then. Obviously, fingerprint analysis today is the standard practice for crime scene investigations. We have a thing that's called APHIS, which has greatly enhanced our ability to communicate with one agency and another. If we have an arrest now, we book somebody in, we could potentially get their fingerprints back within 3 hours, sometimes 15 minutes. That's not saying that if we process the scene that we would get that back within that amount of time, but if we had someone in booking, we do have that ability to submit it and get those results back relatively quickly. And it does help us identify some people. We've had people say, hey, I'm Pat Finnecom, which is my brother, and it's not. It was Tim Finnecom. We have DNA analysis. DNA wasn't a thing back then. DNA profiling today is a powerful tool for us. It's solved many crimes for us, and it will continue to evolve. Early crime scene photography back then was black and white and lacked detail, especially compared to today. My cell phone today takes amazing photos. Crime scene photography today uses high-resolution digital cameras and 3D imaging technology, which can capture the scene. This is huge because what that means is a detective or an officer can go in and capture the scene and then go back and visit that scene in a month. And that scene's been gone. So you can go to an accident scene and revisit that accident scene. People have been driving through that accident scene, but they can go back and revisit that scene as it was happening that day. So that's big on the 3D image technology. We also have a drone here that we recently got, so we'll use the drone footage as well. Evidence preservation is what we talked about already, but there were no standardized procedures back then for the preservation of the evidence. It was often mishandled and probably lost or potentially contaminated. There are very strict protocols nowadays to ensure the evidence is properly documented, stored, and preserved, and it's maintained with the highest integrity. Forensic science, especially as the field didn't exist back then and had limited resources for analyzing any type of evidence. But now it's amazing what they can do, and it is like CSI. They can do a lot of things, but just not within an hour. Sometimes it takes a couple of months. Crime scene restoration. Crime scene restoration was rudimentary at best, and the understanding of the events that unfolded was limited, unless you were Sherlock Holmes, but right now the advancements was blood spatter analysis, ballistics, computer simulations, and the reconstruction of crime scenes determines how the events actually occurred with the facts. Putting in the facts into the computer simulation, it's going to show you what happened and how it occurred. Modern forensic science has greatly improved the accuracy of the investigation and our ability to solve crimes, especially compared to the methods of the 1880s. Question 3, and this is the last question, I promise, and we'll get you out of here quickly. What is today's procedure for recovering stolen property? The procedure for recovering stolen property varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. It's relatively similar. It might be a little bit of different nuances here and there, but this is pretty close. We take the initial police report. The crime happens. The victim reports the crime. During that time, you would report to us if there was something stolen. Serial numbers that you might know, or any identifiable marks, or that we could go and say a table leg was broken off the table that they stole for some reason. That was a uniquely identifiable piece of information that we could find that table for you. The next phase of that is going to be the actual police investigation. During that investigation, we're going to talk to the witnesses. We're going to talk to, we're going to try to gather video surveillance footage and try to gather other evidence. Then we're going to come back and we're going to enter everything into the database. We do have an NCIC database, which stands for the National Crime Information Center, which everybody has access from here to California. And if we have serial numbers and somebody in California gets pulled over and they have your iPad in their car and they run the serial number, they're getting arrested for having stolen property in California. If the stolen property is recovered during an investigation or through a search warrant as part of another case, we will take custody of that property. The recovered property will then be examined to try to find who the owner of that property is. And we'll try to match up some serial numbers, and everything has a serial number on it today. All electronics have serial numbers. Your phone has a serial number. All these TVs have serial numbers. My mouse has a serial number. As you can see, a Rolex watch, high-end jewelry has serial numbers. Even diamonds, tiny diamonds have serial numbers laser inscribed in them. So everything has a serial number. Once we do identify the owner, we will contact them and let them know that we have your property, but you might not get it back right away. So we will store the evidence for you, and it will be preserved, it will be documented and secured in our evidence storage area until the case is resolved. Once the case is resolved, the property will be returned to the owner. If there's a question of ownership, the owner might just have to provide something, a sales receipt saying, hey, that was my diamond. I'm not just going to take your word for it. That was my diamond, and here's the serial number. All right, you get it back. And obviously, we'll have to go, and if we get a suspect, we'll do a court proceeding, and we'll prosecute that subject. And if the stolen property cannot be returned to an owner, we'll either dispose of it if it's that broken table with the leg missing, or we'll put it on propertyroom.com is what we actually do. And they'll hold public auctions, and you can bid on that stuff online. Again, it's important to work with your local police department. I can't promise you that we're going to recover your stolen property. We will try our hardest. It's going to vary jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I won't name certain agencies, but larger agencies might not try as hard as a nice smaller agency like Shrewsbury that cares about their community. I'd like to thank the Historical Society for allowing us to put this presentation on. I'd like to thank the chief for helping me out with this, because there's no way I would have been able to pull this off without him. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Gustafson. Thank you, Mr. Larson. And thank you, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, thanks.
And your next one is going to be Cranberries 101. I will see you there. Thank you very much. Anyway, if you have any questions, we'll stay back.